to come to your question about suffering, Proust suffered all the time. He was one of the illest men. He spent most of his life in bed. And I ask at the beginning, well, this surely suggests that the guy has nothing to teach us if he himself suffers. But a lot of his book is given over to a description of how suffering can teach us. Not all suffering. There are bad ways of suffering, where suffering leads you into denial, anger, paranoia. But the best kinds of suffering are when we are able to learn from suffering. Proust says that good doctors always have to be ill, because the best doctor has to know suffering from the inside. And he means this also for himself, that he suffers a lot, but he has been able, in his suffering, to learn things.
La volonté de construire des guides pour mieux vivre, c'est le cœur de toute votre œuvre. Dans Les Consolations de la philosophie, un de mes favoris, je dois dire, préférés, vous nous parlez du problème des attentes inadéquates comme source de grande partie de nos souffrances aujourd'hui.
I think a lot of what makes us suffer is an idea of what is normal. A normal marriage, a normal job, a normal holiday, a normal visit to a museum. We have these ideas, and very often we don't feel very normal. We're in the museum, but I don't know, we don't feel right. We're in our marriage, but it feels a bit strange. But the idea of what is normal is formed by the media, by films, by conversation among friends, and very often the truth of what is normal is not in the description of what is normal. And this is where art comes in. The best works of art remind us of what we are actually like, not what we're supposed to be like, not what we're supposed to be like in a marriage, at work, on a holiday, but what we are actually like. And that's why, with the best books, it's sometimes like meeting a new friend. You think, at last, I don't have to be so alone with my secrets. The best books know about us, they know the secret sides of us, and when we read them, we find that we are not freakish, singular, odd people, but we are part of the human race.
Dans une de vos conférences à TED, vous avez donné, je crois qu'à propos de ce livre exactement, vous avez donné un très très intéressant exemple avec Hamlet. Parce que c'était très très intéressant la façon dont Hamlet serait traité s'il était aujourd'hui là-bas, la figure de Hamlet, son destin, son histoire.
I was comparing the way that the media deals with failure and the way that artists deal with failure. The media is tough on failure, and that's why we're all so afraid of failure. You know, why are people afraid of losing their job, of being humiliated? It's not just the loss of money. It's the way in which the failure will be discussed and interpreted by others. And, you know, if you look at great works of art, like Shakespeare's Hamlet, you know, if a newspaper was describing that, it might say, you know, loser gets killed in useless battle, you know, royal gets killed in useless battle. But, of course, in Shakespeare, we see the complexity of how this person lost their life. And we would never say this guy's a loser because we appreciate the full humanity. So works of art teach us to appreciate humanity, which is often lost in the kind of squashed media story that we otherwise receive.
L'art du voyage ou une semaine à l'aéroport nous montre comment on doit encore apprendre avec les pèlerins. Chaque voyage doit être un chemin de transformation intérieure, de découverte intérieure d'abord, avant tout. C'est ça? Même si on est seulement dans un aéroport.
I think travel interests me because it's the time of the year when you have a chance to be happy. Right? The rest of the time you do things for money, for responsibility. But a few times a year you say, right, I'm going to have this thing called a holiday. And this represents our best chance of expressing our philosophy of life. And most of the time it goes very wrong in one way or another. It doesn't go quite right. And part of the reason it doesn't go quite right is because we think it's strange to think too much about it. You know, think of the way travel agents operate. The travel agency is in a way a fascinating job, but what it's trying to do is always sell you the cheapest hotel, the best flight, you know, very practical things. But in medieval times, in the heyday of the religious pilgrimage, travel was something much deeper than just relaxing or recreation. It was a journey in the outer world that was supposed to help you to have a journey in the inner world. So something was meant to happen in your heart because you had travelled in space. And that's a lovely idea. I think it's still there hidden in some of our ambitions about travel, but I think we should bring it out. I think, you know, the travel agency of the future shouldn't ask you, where do you want to go? It should ask you essentially, what's wrong with you? Where are you suffering? And where you should go is a response to your suffering inside, rather than just, you know, where there's a cheap...
pour un autre business.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, you joke about business because some of these ideas are so-called business ideas, but it sounds funny because we expect that business is about the material self, clothes, pizzas, shoes, right? But really, I think in the future, businesses will recognize that the inner self, the self that needs community, enlightenment, wisdom, this is also an important part of the human being. And why shouldn't this be part of commercial life? Because it's a part of our life.
Essai d'amour, votre premier livre, demeure votre préféré?
On a good day. Yeah.
Mais c'est bien parce que c'est un livre très émouvant, on peut dire comme ça, parce que vous terminez, je ne veux pas dire tout, mais vous terminez le livre comme vous l'avez commencé, en train d'être amoureux, again and again. C'est bien, mais la souffrance, c'est quelque chose qu'on ne peut pas éviter.
It's a book that tries to explore how one could be wise in love, but accepts that really one of the best ways to be wise is to accept that love is a kind of folly, a kind of madness, and that what we need to do is to find a perspective from which to look at this madness without letting it swallow us up. But most of the time, we will be seriously disturbed by love, and we need to be ready for this disturbance. Every life will be knocked sideways by love at various points. No matter how old or young you are, how wise, how clever, how this, you will be knocked sideways by love. And we have to respect this. Most of us is animal, most of us is emotion, and to think that we can think our way out of it is disrespectful to human nature. And so my book is a philosophical novel about love that plays with some of the paradoxes. And I don't know, people often say to me, I read this book just after a relationship or just as I was falling in love. I think this is often the moment for literature. And it's a book for consolation, really.
Consolation is a central word and idea in all your work. Selon vos thèses, la vie doit s'apprendre pour être meilleure. La vie a été difficile pour vous au début. Votre famille avait besoin de mieux apprendre à vivre.
I think my family was averagely crazy. I think most families are a bit crazy. I think, you know, my family, they were very competent in the outside world. The outside world thought them as very normal and, you know, successful. But I knew inside that lots was not right. And I think this is the experience of most people, really. You know, human life is difficult for everyone. The problems are economic at the moment for many people, but they go way beyond the economy. You know, I grew up in Switzerland, which is one of the most successful countries economically, and it's not a happy country. You know, it has lovely mountains, but it's not Heidi. The whole thing is not paradise. And, you know, even as a child, I was aware of this. I was aware that this was a very privileged country, and yet I was aware that it had a lot of problems. And, you know, even in this midst of this economic crisis, we should remember that the problems of human nature are not just economic ones. Yeah, life's a difficult business, and that's what excites me as a writer, that's what motivates me as a human being. How can we make a little bit of order, a little bit of sense before, you know, death washes us away?
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much.
Alain de Botton.
Merci.
Mesmo a terminar, lembro de que no sítio do Câmara Clara pode encontrar muito mais sugestões de livros, discos, espetáculos, filmes, exposições, conferências. No mesmo sítio, pode ainda rever esta e outras emissões no dia e à hora que mais lhe convierem. Amanhã, Luís Caetano regressa com o diário Câmara Clara. É aqui na RTP2 às 22h30. Deixo com um videoclipe do novo trabalho dos The Soaked Lamb, Evergreens, nas lojas de discos a partir de 18 de junho. A Flor e o Espinho chama-se este tema, de que lhe mostro aqui um videoclipe em estreia absoluta.
Tira o teu sorriso do caminho que eu quero passar com a minha dor. Hoje para ti eu sou um espinho, o espinho não magoa a flor. Eu só errei quando juntei minha alma à tua. O sol não pode viver ao pé da lua. É no espelho que eu vejo a minha mágoa, a minha dor e os meus olhos rasos de água. Eu na tua vida já fui uma flor. Hoje sou um espinho no teu amor. Tira o teu sorriso do caminho que eu quero passar com a minha dor. Hoje para ti eu sou um espinho, o espinho não magoa a flor. Eu só errei quando juntei minha alma à tua. O sol não pode vir